Hi, I'm Julie Pratten, the Global Talent Director here within the InterQuest Group. Today we're going to be talking about training that you can receive within the group and how that relates to each level of the career path. Today I am joined by our Head of L&D, Mish. Mish, give us a bit of an overview of yourself and your role here within the group.
Yep, sure. So I'm Mish. I'm the Head of Learning and Development for InterQuest Group. I've always been in sales for as long as I can remember, even part-time jobs. And then before learning and development, I was a recruiter for about 5 years before moving into learning and development, which I've now been doing for about 6 years. And in that time, I've used my experience as a recruiter to build various programs and set up functions for different companies and come here to InterQuest, and I've set up the L&D function here. Yeah. I'm also now a qualified coach and an NLP practitioner.
Excellent. You've been with us for about 4 years now,
4 years, yeah.
4 years. Goes quick, right? Yeah. Excellent. So I think it's really good if we start from the beginning, as if we were going to kind of join as an entry-level recruiter, coming into the world of recruitment, right the way up to leadership. I'll kind of, relay the job title. If you could then give me all your skills and expertise of the training that they would receive against each of that level, that would be really interesting. So if I came in as a junior recruitment consultant, fresh, never done recruitment before, what can I expect to receive from yourself in terms of training?
So we have a new to recruitment program, which is designed specifically for people who want to join recruitment who have no experience. That can be quite daunting. It feels like there's a lot to know and to get yourself going. So there's a program completely designed to deal with any of those things or any insecurities and fears that anyone might have joining it. And what we look at is the candidate cycle and the client cycle. Yep. So it depends whether or not you're going down the delivery route or you want to do a 360 role within recruitment. Both areas are covered. The cycle takes you through all the different checkpoints that you'll have with candidates and clients. We look a lot at the art and science of selling. We also look at best practice, techniques, tactics, as well as a lot of psychology behind what's happening with each interaction. So at every point, you're absolutely covered from start to finish with a candidate client.
And I think that's really important, isn't it? Because I think it's not only about the skills, it's also about that understanding the psychology. And then, as you mentioned there, if you've got any kind of, I suppose, nerves when you come into the industry, it's that imposter syndrome kicking in a little bit, like going, I don't know anything I'm doing here. That is really essential to get structurally trained in the right way, not only from the skills, but also from getting your head around the psychology that sits behind it all. Yeah,
so it's all about best practice, and these programs are designed based on, like I said, science, psychology, industry, but also just looking at top billers and how they generate success, because they tend to have certain formulas or processes or structures that, whether they're using them consciously or subconsciously, that we've explored, been able to create models and training off the back of how people have created success and gone on to have really successful careers. Like, what are the top things that they're doing in order to generate such success?
And that program is the
InterQuest. So it's called
program.
InterQuest, and it's our InterQuest Academy, which is clients and candidates.
Yeah, which is good actually, because then it doesn't matter if you're going to continue down the delivery route or go into 360. You start off learning the candidate cycle, which is essential, isn't it, to really get right, because actually that generates a lot of leads for you as well. Yeah, and then that leads you into the sales aspect if you're going to go down the 360 recruitment consultant role. Brilliant. Done the InterQuest Academy training, got that now down. That's sort of been cemented in by my manager, helping me to kind of put that in. I've now moved to a recruitment consultant, so that you're now in that fully pledged kind of retcon role. What's that going to look like from a training side? Yeah,
so from this perspective, what we're looking to do is elevate your skills at this point. You'll be surprised when you join recruitment. At first, you'll feel like a deer in headlights, haven't got a clue what's going on. But very, very quickly, you just start to pick things up, clicks, and then it does. Like, when I joined, someone said, you'll have a light bulb moment where suddenly everything will just fall into place, and that just felt like it was never going to come. And then one day you just feel like, I actually know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about.
Or you make
or you make your first placement, or you start getting these little wins. So then what we look to do once you hit that point is elevate skills. So we look to build on what you already know. What we don't want to do is ambush you with so much information and everything from day one, because it's a lot to take in. So then we look at, this is where you're at now. We start to harness those skills. At this point, you're probably thinking whether you want to be delivery, 360. You've got an idea of the different types of roles in recruitment. So we'll then look to elevate skills on your candidate engagement, your client engagement. And we move away slightly from more, structure and process because by now you've got that in place, and we look more at interaction, communication styles. We start to introduce like the social styles, the different color personas, you know, how your communication styles are, how others are, and how they interact, and we start to move into that territory to elevate skills you've already gained.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Because you've got the structure now of the parameters of how you do your role from a process side, and now you can kind of not forget about that, because that's obviously important, but hopefully that's ingrained. And now you're able to kind of think about more aspects of it and how you're having more, I suppose, valuable conversations with people. And you touched there about the social skills and communication styles.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating, because it actually not only are you teaching them around kind of what they're looking out for when they're speaking to other people, but it's about understanding yourself more, isn't it? So if you understand your own communication style, the way that you think extremely well, and get to know yourself more, you are going to be a better person at selling, because actually you can influence yourself more as well as others.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. So we've gone, that's at recruitment consultant level then. So we've done well with that. We've achieved our targets. We've used all those skills in the right way. We've shown the right behaviours around values. And now we've hit the criteria to then move into a senior consultant role. What would I receive from you then? Yeah,
so at this point, I think we're entering the territory of mastery. You know, to hit senior consultant, you're well on your way. You've got the skills, you've got the knowledge, you've obviously got the drive and the desires to continue. And what we don't like to do here at InterQuest is suddenly just be like, great, you're on your way now. Carry on. And I think typically that happens a lot, where that once you start knowing what you're doing, you know, training just doesn't really come about, because there's a sense that you don't need it. But what's important is to focus on strengths. You know, in training, we always see it as I'm developing something I don't have, or a weakness, whereas actually we need to harness strengths. And when you're at the mastery level of, you know, candidates and clients, by this point, it's how can we then take that and build on that, which is then looking more deeper into communication styles, psychology, kind of building on the skills that you have, but just sort of elevating them again to get you completely into that mastery category, so that you can go through these cycles. And also at this point, you're starting to think around, you know, do you want to be a manager, or do you want to be, you know, do you want to just be a biller? Also, you might be mentoring, or like the idea of mentoring, because, you know, there's juniors joining your team. So then we start to look at how you kind of step into that role of mentor at this point as well. Yeah, and I think that's actually really important, because I think a lot of people feel that once you've been in the role for a number of years, hit with a title of senior in it, that's it, you're done. But actually it's really important for you to continue to learn and grow and just think about how you're doing things. It's not necessarily about making sure that you're learning something fantastically new, but it's about how taking something you already know and just utilising that to a deeper level and a further level, continuing to grow yourself. And I think one of the things I think is really important to be successful in this sort of industry long term is to know that you never know everything. Yeah, and actually it's that continued thirst for learning, because actually what we're doing when we're speaking to our clients and candidates is constantly learning from them. Yeah, because we're asking the right questions and we're being inquisitive, and actually we should look that on ourselves as making sure that we're learning and growing as well. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more you do recruitment as well, the more your bad habits start to seep in. It's like driving, right? Yeah, absolutely. You know, you just sort of go into autopilot, or, you know, we take things for granted, we make assumptions, which is a bit of a dangerous territory to be in, because, you know, we're not dealing with a product per se, it's people, you know, candidates, clients, it's, you know, every angle, it's always people. So, you know, we have to always make sure we're tapping into those drivers as motivators. We're doing the, you know, giving them the best service and, you know, putting them in the best possible jobs, and with our clients, making sure they get a great service from us. So those bad habits start to seep in. So it's always really good to kind of check yourself and remind yourself to sometimes go back to basics, or actually think around how you were doing things, and not let those habits, you know, hinder you. And I think I was just going to say that one of the things that I found, you know, when I speak to people, and even myself going through my career, is that sometimes you have to, you get so ingrained in some of the new, exciting and deeper level stuff that you do, that you forget some of the basics, and you kind of kick yourself. You're like, that's so simple, but I forgot it, because you go down a different avenue. So it's kind of always like reminding you what best practice looks like, what the absolute standard is that you should be doing, which is your structure, whilst then continuing to add the new skills into it. Yeah. So you've gone from that, and you've gone to now you're reaching principal level. You've hit principal level things. Is that a similar sort of thing, but again continuing to elevate on those same skills, or we're going down different routes in terms of new skills? Yeah. So some of it is new skills. You know, along the way here at InterQuest, we do also engage external companies to come in and do various trainings. You know, from negotiation, even leadership, anything, you name it. Like we would always go to whoever's best place to do a training. I mean, most of it is done by myself, but I think it's important to see different perspectives and hear from different people. You start to engage more with MDs and directors of business that act as mentors, particularly when you're principal. And as I mentioned, I am an in-house coach. So it's a lot of coaching at that stage, because you probably are at that ultimate mastery stage by principal, and then you're at that crossroads between, am I going to go down the management route, team lead route, or am I going to continue on this trajectory of being a biller? So it's important then to just coach someone into where they're at, where, what they're thinking, what they're doing. And coaching is about, again, self-development. People will have personal goals, or, sometimes at that point you might feel like you've got a little bit stagnant in your role, that you just want to inject some sort of new energy. We like to encourage innovation, new ideas. You've got this far in your career, how can we utilize your skills and knowledge, but also make sure we enhance you. So the coaching starts to step in, mentoring starts to step in, and you still have training programs that are designed to keep you at that mastery level and beyond.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because actually at that point you are really in those crossroads, aren't you, to do you want to be a sole contributor, like you mentioned, a biller, where you're just focusing on your own business and going up the path in that direction, or whether you want to go down a people management route. Sometimes people know exactly what they want to do, but sometimes they don't. And it's like with anything, you just need to talk it through and understand your own strengths and skills to what route you want to go down. And there's nothing to say that one route is more sort of senior than the other route. At the end of the day, we've all got different strengths and different skills and are motivated by different things. At that point, if somebody decides to go down and be a sole contributor to get up to director level still, absolutely fine. It's utilising that and doing that. Other people want to share that knowledge and kind of almost, they see it as a real privilege to be able to help somebody else go through their career and everything, which goes down the management route. So we're at the principal level, receive that training. I now know what route I want to go down. So I'm going to go down for sort of the ease and simplicity on this video, go down the route of I'm going to start managing now, managing people. It is a privilege to have somebody else's career in your hands, and that will need to come with support as you evolve out of the mindset of a single kind of contributor into that management level. You've got management training programs that are written around that, haven't you? Yeah,
absolutely. So, you'll have a management program from day one, which will cover all topics. It spans over 6 months. So it's an ongoing process of developing. So there'll be some classroom-based training. There's follow-up training. There's one-to-one coaching, not only from myself, but also your managers are very heavily involved in developing you as well. And the whole program is designed to help you transition into that role of I'm now responsible for somebody else and myself. As you said, recruitment's hard enough when you're doing it for yourself, and up until this point you would have. Even though you play into a team and a wider thing, a lot of us get into recruitment to make money and, or whatever drives us and motivates us, but it's quite self-driven up until that point. And now you have to think about somebody else and what it means to them and their career progression, and give them the same opportunities that you've had to get to that position.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I love about the program that you run here within the group is getting people to understand how to manage people within best practice, but equally knowing that you need to manage people very differently, because different people have different styles. You're going to need to draw certain bits of information out from other people and drive them and motivate them in different ways, and your program is written to make sure that managers understand and can identify the different learning, the different management styles they're going to need to adopt for their team.
So it requires a lot of self-awareness as well to be able to do things like that. So the other thing that we do here, and that I'm qualified to do, is the psychometric testing, which looks at what we talked about earlier, the social styles and the colour personalities, but this time it's doing it on a much deeper level. And we look at 3 different personas. How do you actually show up? What comes natural to you, and then what happens when we have, an overextension, which is you're either overwhelmed or you're stressed or you're overplaying a strength. So it's a very, very self-aware, it requires a lot of self-awareness. It allows you to kind of explore those sides of you, and it just helps you for all those things that you've just said about being a better manager, understanding yourself. It starts there to then understand how then can I adapt or communicate with others who are maybe coming from a different perspective than I usually do.
Yeah, and that colour thing that you mentioned there, just for people that wouldn't know what that is, that's where you go through some testing and you understand about your personality traits, isn't it? So it's whether you are somebody that is more analytical in terms of your mindset and you like to think before you act, people that are very quick to act before they think, and all different styles. There's no right or wrong style, but it's about understanding who you are and how others can see you,
Yeah.
for you then to know that if you're talking to somebody from a completely different perspective and they're very analytical and you're very hot-headed and you go for it, everything without data, that actually that might not work. And it's about understanding how you need to get the best, how you can change yourself to get the best out of that other individual in your communication.
Yeah, and then when you get to the management level, it's also about your team being aware of how you operate. So it works both ways, and we massively encourage. It's not only about you getting to know them; it's about them getting to know you. And these profiles we do throughout your career. So from when you start, it's not just
because you change, don't you? As you evolve and you learn new skills and you become more senior in your role, as a natural evolution of life, I think your style changes, isn't it? And your mindset changes. So therefore, it's quite interesting actually to see what your kind of profiling would be at the beginning of your career through to when you get to this point now at management and you've been trained into being a manager.
Or sometimes it doesn't change, in which case it requires that self-awareness to be able to adapt and adjust depending on the situation. So you're supported throughout that, but it's not just something exclusively you get when you're a manager. You're still doing all the way through. What we do is, as you progress in your careers, these different profiles require different things from you, and we kind of meet that and measure that as it goes along as well.
Cool. So gone from principal into managing consultants, you continue to learn that management program, it takes it to the next level. And then you're doing well, you've got a team around you, which will be multiple people around you, and now is the point where you go from management into leadership. There is an argument to say that management is leadership, and it absolutely should always be, but I'm just trying to define the levels of going from like a managing consultant team lead to like a manager and director level. And from your training perspective, it does slightly shift, doesn't it, in terms of the focus and how you train. So just talk me through that kind of more senior leadership sort of support.
I think when you first enter management, it's new. You may have done it before, you may not have done it before, but the assumption is you haven't done it before, so you're supported in that way. And naturally, as you progress into leadership, each leadership role, each tier is adding a new skill set. So each program is designed to help you to understand what that skill set is, how to execute that skill set when you need it, why, where you go to get the information. So we don't ever want you to feel in any of your roles that you're unsupported or you're just thrown into it. Moving from a team lead to a manager, whether it be an associate director, director, all comes with different responsibilities. So the programs are equipped to make sure you are equipped to step into those roles. We try to do some of the training beforehand, so you're already, when you're stepping into that role, like earlier you mentioned imposter syndrome. It's important when people step into roles that you're feeling like, I already know what I'm doing, or I've got some idea of what I'm doing. So it's a nice transition into the role, and it's a bit more seamless and less daunting. So that's one way we develop the leadership, is to make sure you've got the skill set that corresponds to the level and what's expected of you in that role. And then again, we carry on with, the self-awareness, your leadership style. What does it now mean to oversee larger teams that you're responsible for rather than individuals? And also, it's a lot of coaching and mentoring. At this point, we engage with external coaches as well as myself, and using people across the business, like senior directors, MDs, even our CEO. Offers a lot of mentoring and coaching as well.
So it's really, really supported all the way through the ranks. And also, as well as all of that, if anyone feels at any point when they do their reviews or have their conversations with their managers that they could do with some additional training in certain areas, not necessarily in the full sort of skills suite, but particular skills that they feel that they just need that little bit extra support, they can always reach out. That gets sort of picked up and put onto your radar, and you pick that up with individuals, don't you? Run certain workshops for either refreshing the game skills or just kind of sitting with individuals and talking through one-on-one around, how they can really get their heads around what that's going to mean for them and put it into practice. So no one gets lost in that whole process. It's always picked up that they've actually gained the skills, gets implemented, and if they need a bit of extra support, they reach out and you're willing and able to be able to go and give that support to them.
So each level has a core program that comes with your progression, so you're always supported. So I'll always be popping up in your career. I'm not going to go anywhere. You'll always be seeing me at every turn. And then outside of those core programs, we have workshops, which is designed to just target certain skills that we really want to hone and revisit. We do refreshers as and when they're needed. We do masterclasses with people across the business that are expertise in certain areas. As I've already mentioned, we engage with external trainers. When we engage with external companies, what we're looking for are not necessarily trainers in recruitment, people that are completely outside of our
industry. Through that at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah,
Fantastic
absolutely.
training.
So we've got people from all walks of life that come in and do training, just to give a different perspective, because it's all relative. Because we deal with people, and you know, there's different ways of looking at things, and that's what we like to do. Is it's part of us being a bit more innovative about how we train. So you have that as well. You know, there's a lot of mentoring and coaching that's available to absolutely everybody. So outside of the core programs, there's so much going on as well. We also have platforms internally that we use to send out things like top tips that come out weekly, whether it be a quick video from myself or someone from the business, you know, quick snapshot bits of information, so that people aren't waiting for training. So you've always got access to go to something. And of course, all the managers and team leads across the business are very bought into training. I work very closely with a lot of them. I've been here 4 years. Some of them I've seen move into these roles. So we all kind of sing off the same hymn sheet. So, you know, it's
important, isn't it? And I think one of the key things that I really like about anyone that needs any sort of training support or anything throughout the group is that it is at your fingertips. You know, again, you can either go on, like you mentioned, in the platforms to be able to look at stuff yourself, but equally to know that at any point they reach out to you or any of the management team, senior leadership team, everyone's willing to help. And I think that's the key thing. So I think when you're in a learning environment, obviously you're leading it and you're running it, but it's about making sure that we have that culture where people are sharing knowledge and are willing to do so. And if they have got to the point where they're kind of at a senior level within the group, you know, it's a privilege to be able to share those skills with other people, albeit if it's not even somebody that works for you. It's just a case of somebody comes and asks you a question. You know, it's almost flattering, isn't it, really, that someone's come and asked you, you know, a question about their training and development, because they see you as an expert in, you know, in that particular area. So it's true to say then that in all terms, you're coming into the group, you're going to get supported, you're going to get all the help that you need. You're going to be there whether you like it or not, with a smile on your face. But, you know, there's no reason to hesitate joining the group about, you know, not having that continued support and training and development. And I think, you know, as I mentioned, as I said earlier on, you know, you can always learn. You know, it's really important to make sure that you continue to grow and learn. And, you know, and even within the group, outside of the core programs, if there's anything you're ever interested in and you put your hand up to it, you know, be that to you or to their managers, you know, if they're really passionate about something that somebody else in the group is doing and they want to get involved to learn new skills on, then we're absolutely encouraging the people to go and do that as well. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the thing is a lot of this is in-house as well. So it's not like you have training and then you're left to your own devices. You know, there's a lot of follow-up, there's a lot of embedding. There's always someone around who has been part of that training, whether it's myself, you know, I'm in and around the office, or offices, and, you know, managers, everyone knows what we do training. So, you know, what's one of the benefits of us actually having an in-house function is it gets upheld, you've got people to go to, so it's not, you know, I've got to retain everything from a session because I don't, you know, and then there's no support afterwards. There's a lot of steps that we take in between as well to make sure, because the real learning happens when you're actually doing the job, 100%. And we completely appreciate that that's the case. But I keep using the driving thing, but I always do relate back to that, because when you're doing your driving lessons and then you do your test, then you're like, off you go, and you get in the car for the first time on your own, and you're like, oh! Whereas actually, it's brilliant, isn't it, to have somebody sat there going, come on, relax, let's do this, think about that. So brilliant. Look, thank you for walking us through that. Hopefully that's given everyone a bit of an idea of the support that you get across the group. We're passionate about learning and development here within the group. It is absolutely vital to making sure that our staff have everything in their hands to be as successful as they want to be, and we'll absolutely drive that forward with you. Thank you.